Hello, everybody, all of you radiant beings out there. This is Michelle Starr once again, coming back with my Mysti-Stories for you. What I've done is organized all my stories into categories so that they're all related, and I have 9 total categories. So there'll be several stories in each one, and each video will address one category. So today's category is nature. These are experiences that I've had on the mystic path that were related to nature. Excuse me. So the first one I have is kind of humorous. At least it was to me. And years ago, decades ago, I used to try my hand at poetry, and I never considered it to be very good, but I had fun with it. And I've always gone down to the metro parks. I live near an entrance to the metro parks, and I've always enjoyed it's like my backyard for a long time, or front yard even, because it was within walking distance. But I came back from a visit to the metro parks down by the river, and I wrote this silly little poem. I'm going to read it to you because there's more to the story. It's very synchronous, and it was a lot of fun. So this poem, it doesn't even have a title. I don't even know, excuse me, what year I wrote it. It was probably back in maybe the late 70s. So here it is. Sometimes when I'm uptight, I go to the valley to sit on a hill and watch the scenery sway in the wind as imbecilic clouds pass overhead. And the falling sun fades the light of day. I listen to the river grinding its banks into coins of shale and smell the odious fragrance of fish as they get caught. Sometimes when I'm uptight, I go to the valley to sit on a hill and leave to find a place to relax. I remember when I wrote this, the day I was there at the parks, it was just noisy for some reason. And that's okay, but I just wanted to relax, so I wrote this silly poem. There were fishermen in the river, and it was a beautiful day, so it was just play, okay? So, to continue the story, years later, decades later, I was walking with a friend in the metro parks, and we came right up to the same place where I came up with the idea for this poem and where I had been sitting next to the river, on the bank of the river. So as my friend and I were approaching this spot, we were on the bike path. To the right was some grassy area in the woods, and then it led down the bank to the river. So as we were coming to that point, I mentioned this silly poem that I wrote and that I had referred to because there's a lot of shale along the riverbanks. It's very thin. And where I mentioned the river grinding its banks into coins of shale, I just thought, how humorous, you know. I was laughing at my own joke. So I'm telling her about this poem, and we're walking in the grass towards the trees to go down by the river. and I saw something on the ground shining. And I looked down, and there were 2 quarters right on the ground. So I was blown away by the synchronicity of it. It was just a lot of fun to experience that, and we laughed, and then we went on down to the river. So that's my first story. Okay, so I'm going to check that off. Coins of shale. So synchronicity, as you walk the path of mysticism, or just the spiritual life, I guess you could call it, um, appreciating nature, appreciating the divine, or your view of the divine, whatever that is. You get on this path where you get a little calmer, and more synchronicity happens to you, and it just becomes a way of life. It's great fun. Sometimes it's mind blowing, but so another story. I was down in the metro parks. There was an area where there was a memorial, and it was way up on the top of a hill, and there was a deck overlooking the park. It looked down onto the river. Through, you could see the whole vista of all the trees in the park. It was beautiful, and it's not there anymore. They've changed it, but I was feeling really down. I had lost a friend, and I was feeling so down for a long, long time, much longer than I should have been, I suppose. You got to let go sometime, right? But I was still feeling down in the dumps, but I went to walk in the park. It always made me feel better. Excuse me. And so I'm standing on this deck. Next to the deck, the overlook, there's this tiny little tree, kind of like a Snoopy Christmas tree. And a bird came along and sat on one of the branches. And here it was, a bluebird. And it started twittering at me, just and it was looking at me as though it was trying to tell me something. And I'm kind of taken aback, but then I was relaying this little experience to my mother, and she says, "Well, that was the bluebird of happiness." So we get communication from these critters out there if we watch for it. And it was a point well taken. So I got my act together after that, and returned to happiness. Okay. So it was a meaningful experience, and bluebirds are so beautiful. I'm remembering other experiences down there that I hadn't even written down. One was with bluebirds. I was riding my bike on the all-purpose trail, and there was a flock of birds that came in. It was the path was near the road, so the road's here, and then there were, of course, more woods, and up in the trees there must have been 100 birds, and they were all bluebirds. They were migrating. So that was a peak experience for me, to see all of those beautiful bluebirds singing and chirping away. So I'm going to make a note of that too. And another experience I had in the metro parks was an intentional medicine walk. Now, I have read some books on Native American spirituality and some of their traditions, and they have a different belief system, but I really love their belief system. And it's very spiritual and connected to nature, the earth, honoring nature, honoring Earth Mother, and each other. High respect for others and their privacy and their dreams. So I had read about taking a medicine walk, and you kind of set your intention before you leave. And I went down into the park, and by Maple Grove picnic area, there is a part of the bridle path where the horses go up this huge hill. Not only is it a huge grade, it goes up and then it turns, so it's even bigger than you initially believe. But it's good for getting into shape and good for hips, okay, to tone up. So I used to go there periodically, and I went with the intention of having some sort of um, an experience with nature. So the intention was set. I was walking along the path through the pine trees. It's so beautiful up there. And I was walking towards the cliff where the river is way below. And I looked down and was just enjoying nature and quiet and kind of being private and just connecting in. And I looked into the sky, and there was a cloud in the shape of the moon, and it was kind of pockmarked. You know how when you look at the moon, it looks like it's pocked? And it had two eyes. One eye was closed as though winking. The other eye was open, and the sun was shining through it, a shaft of light directly through that cloud and onto me, only me. There was no other light, just a shaft of light shining on me. Now, in the Native American tradition, they believe that the clouds have spirits in them, that they have consciousness or intelligence. They're part of nature. And I talk to the cloud people. So I thank them for showing up and just letting me connect. It was it was beautiful. It's a moving experience. It's not even hardly anything you can describe. You have to experience it. But everybody can do it if you want, if that's something that interests you. So it does me. I love connecting with nature. I've had many dreams with nature beings and critters, talking with them. I've had a rich inner life. So, all right. One of my other stories is about a dream I had. It was lucid, was profound in full color. It didn't last very long, but that's the way dreams are. They come and go. So I was behind a stage, the curtain of a stage, okay, like where people perform. There was an audience beyond the stage. It was dark, but I just knew there was an audience there. And there on the stage was a ballerina, but it was a spider, like a spider fairy. It had tiny, tiny little ballet shoes on, and it had on a tutu, and it had all its legs, and it was using its longest back legs to dance on stage. So I was observing from behind the curtain. I watched the spider, and it finished its dance, and then its legs were all, she brought them up like this, and I thought, oh no, in the dream, I thought to myself, oh no, she's going to attack the crowd. And she didn't. When I thought that, immediately all these feathery, wispy hairs and like feathers, just everything softened on her. And that was the end of the dream. So I took that to mean because also along with the Native American tradition, they honor spider because they represent creativity and the web of life. They create their webs, which are, they're beautiful. So it was really interesting to have that dream. Let's see, that was back in, I think about 2015. So kind of recent compared to some of these experiences. So later on, I was with the same friend that we were walking and found the quarters on the ground, okay, the coins of shale. And we had gone to the Irish American Arts Festival at the fairgrounds. It was great fun, but coming out of that at night, it was dark and there were all these cars. And I'm looking around at these cars, and so many of their license plates had the letters EVA on them. EVA, EVA. So, and I kept seeing this not just that night, but many of them as we were sitting in traffic. So it was really noticeable, and I mentioned it even to my friend. But I was seeing that name on many license plates just everywhere. So I posed the question to the universe, who is this Eva? So I mentioned it to a friend of mine she actually works as a psychic and does readings and seminars. And she said, well, Eva is not just a spider fairy, she's a cosmic being. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. So as I have traveled my journey, was studying the Taurus. The Taurus, every living creature has a Taurus around it. It's like a energy grid. Some people refer to it as an aura, but I see it as more than that. There's a grid to it. And the Taurus, like we have a Taurus around us, and the energy, it's our energy flow, which comes in through the crown. We have chakras, um, and then in through the lower chakras, and that meets in the middle and then comes up and comes over, and then they meet in the middle and spin. So they can spin either direction, but the Taurus, or the plural, is Tauri. We have not just the one close to our body, but they're nested. We have them that it goes out and out and out and all the way out. The more enlightened we are, the further out into the universe the Tauri go. So as I was studying that, I happened to look in a book on Earth mysteries, and there was a picture of the Earth as she's traveling through the universe, rotating around the sun, of course. And it showed her magnetosphere, which is her Taurus. And as the Earth flies through or sails through the space, the wind, the solar wind, has an impact on that Taurus. So the Taurus is shaped like an apple, okay? So it's like a cored apple. There's like an opening in the top and an opening in the bottom. So if you were to blow wind on that energy, it would pull it back and it looks just like a spider. So that's Eva. So I just, I'm guided along and I figure these things out as I go. Um, the importance of that, the relevance, I think she is a guide and a protector. Being a cosmic being, she's probably protecting all of us and the earth. So it's just so interesting to me and so much fun to have these experiences and to connect these dots. So so that's the spider fairy dream and about Eva. Back in 1995, I went to my yoga teacher training. I'd already been teaching for 10 years, but I wanted to get certification and I wanted a good school. So I went to Kripalu, the yoga and health center out in Massachusetts. It's in the Berkshire Mountains, a beautiful area. They're not really tall mountains, but it's still beautiful. And there was a lake across the road, and the school was up on top of a hill. It used to be a Jesuit monastery. And my class, there were about 42 people in my class, but there was plenty of room. They accommodated us well. And we slept in dormitories. There was an option for a private room, but it was much more expensive. So, and it was fun to be with people in the dormitory. So, while we were there, we looked out the window of the dorm and there was a bush and there was a bird's nest in the bush. So, this, I believe, was in June in 1995. So, in that nest were robin's eggs, and the mother would come and sit on her eggs. And it was pretty low down, but it was protected because the building was right there. It was brick, and she had the bush, and there really was no threat to her. So I think she just felt safe. So we watched her every day to see when those little eggs would hatch. And as synchronicity would have it, the day we graduated from our yoga teacher training was the day those birds, they had hatched and they flew off the same day that we graduated. So it was just a meaningful benchmarker. Okay. Now I have experimented with mm, visualization and travel, mind travel. And when I was teaching yoga at, it was Southwest General, they had a Stay Well program there. I think that that was 1986. Uh, and I arrived early to teach my class. And I thought, well, I'm just going to meditate while I'm here, just get all calm and centered. And there was a skylight in that room. And I thought, I'd like to see the earth from out there. I'd like to look down on the earth. And boom, I was out there looking down on the earth, and it scared me so much that I just came right back in. So it's fun, and over time you gain confidence in that, and you're always protected. You use white light. So then another meditation that I had was really interesting, not because of what happened, but because of what it meant and what it means today, and is partly why I'm here giving these Mysti-Stories and using my voice to express. Okay. It wasn't a dream, it was a meditation. And this was also in 1986. A lot of things happened in 1986. And I would refer you to my book if you want to read about it. It's filled with magic. But I was in this meditation and I was walking in the desert just alone. There was nothing around. It was just desert. There weren't even any plants or cactus or anything. It was just plain. And I walked up to this area where there was a huge crevasse, just a huge opening in the earth, and it was long, like a big crack in the earth. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I walked up to the edge of this crevasse and I looked down, and it just was really deep. It just went like forever. I didn't see any bottom to it. And I just said hello down into the crevasse, and boom, it closed up. The earth pulled together. So it's like, whoa, it was kind of shocking. And I had a friend who did channeling back then, and I also have a yogi guide. His name is Ashiro. He's from India, but he says his bones have been there for a long, long time. But he came through and he told me that that meditation was from him. Our guides do give us these visions. And he gave me that one. And he said, now this is not about the earth healing, but this vision was the only way he could figure out to tell me what I needed to know. Now, our guides, when they channel, they try to help us on our path, but they don't give us too many answers because the answers are in here and we got to figure it out ourselves. So this was one of those. No answer as to what it did mean. So it took probably 20 years for me to figure that out. The way I figured it out was what happened in the dream. Well, I was walking. That's not really too exciting, right? And the only thing that happened was my voice speaking down into the earth and the earth closing. Like it was as though that crevasse was never there. It had healed, but why? So what I've gotten from this, and there is something called the yoga voice, which is achieved through years and years of yoga practice, and there's probably a talent connected with it. So this is what I got from the meditation, that my voice connected the earth. I'm naturally a connecting type person with my yoga students. So my voice, when I speak, impacts people. And I think part of that is I'm not really in an altered state, although when I'm teaching yoga, I am. So I'm bringing through ancient energy and bringing that through for healing and for connecting, because I think our world kind of needs that. So it's interesting to figure these things out, but guidance provides the answers when we connect with our higher self. So I shared that with you in the first couple of videos about, well, it was the very first one about um, how that works with meditation and mysticism. So there's just a couple other stories. One is a dream I had, and this was, I actually have the full date. It was April 8th of this year. The dream was I I was again alone, and I I didn't notice a body. So when I'm not seeing a body in my dream, then I figure I'm in spirit form. I've had dreams where I went skiing without a body, just sailing over the snow. It was wonderful. So much fun and so relaxing. But this dream, I was in a field, and it was a grassy field. There was no crops or anything. It was just grass. And apparently it had rained recently because there were small puddles, just little puddles along the way, just here and there scattered. But there were these little animals that were just racing towards me and going past me. There were turtles and little muskrats and just all kinds of water creatures. And there was a turtle that came up and was swimming through this one puddle. And as the water ran out and he would have had to be on grass, the water appeared for him. So whatever he needed so that he could navigate more easily, it appeared. So this dream had a message in it for me. First of all, these animals were, I just knew in the dream that they were heading towards God. They were going to meet God. Well, God's always been here, so there's something about that. But also, the fact that water was appearing as they needed it, that's a message that whatever I need is going to appear. It's like taking a step, in the Indiana Jones, one of the Indiana Jones movies where he's going through all of his challenges and he comes to this huge drop off in a wide cavern and he thinks he has to jump it, but he figures it out and he just says, okay, leap of faith. He stretches his leg out and he sets his foot down, even though there's nothing there, apparently, but there is. There was a bridge, and it was like graphics was great on this because you couldn't tell what was the actual bridge and what was stone and just the environment there. So, of course, then he gets across the bridge and he throws some stones or powder or something on there so he can find it when he comes back. But that's the way it was, and that's the way it is for me. That's what the dream is telling me, that whatever I need, just take a step towards it and have faith, and what I need will be there. But also, these critters were headed towards God. Now, in the dream, I could feel God was behind me. I could feel this huge energy back there. And it's like, well, I've known, I've felt aligned and connected with the source for a while, and I wondered what is this about? So my intuition leads me to believe that it's the Christ consciousness that's coming back, which sometimes they refer to as the second coming. So whatever it means, and there may be more information unfold as I walk this path and as I listen. But I think that's what it is. I think it's very close to the time where, if you've ever heard of the ascension or the harvest, uh, then you may recognize that this could be part of it. Okay. So it's all interesting. All right. So my last story is about the whales. I've always loved dolphin and whales, and I have books on them, huge books with f- amazing photographs underwater, on top of the water. And I connected with the whale oversoul, and I never really communicated with it very much. And supposedly, I was supposed to channel the whales. But when I sat in meditation, this was a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago by now. Time goes so fast now. I had meditated and I had friends with me, and we were talking about a fairy garden, and I had created one and I showed them my fairy garden. It's in the other room, protected from my cats. So we did a meditation. They were yoga students, so it was fine, comfortable. And I saw in there a little fairy, and it was very, very bright white, was small. In my vision, it was probably like this size, and it had wings like you see pictures of fairies, but it was the whitest and brightest that I'd ever seen, and I I thought it was just a fairy. So I was talking about it with my friends afterwards. We were just kind of sharing experiences, and it turns out that was Iphis. Iphis is her name. She's the oversoul for the fairies. I was expecting to see a whale, but my guide, who had channeled through back when my psychic friends was around, um, channeled my guide a couple times, well, more than a couple times, but he wanted me to create a white fairy, a little white angel, fluffy white. He called it a fluffy white angel. So it's like, okay, so I did. And I didn't know the significance of that. I didn't know why he asked me to. I just figured it was an exercise to tap me into the angels. Well, I guess the dolphins and whales are angels. So then when I had this experience of seeing what I thought was a fairy, but was actually the oversoul for all the marine mammals, then I knew. So that has yet to unfold, which it will in its right time. I don't worry about that because it always comes when it's meant to. All right, so those are all the stories that I have. Um, so I hope you enjoy them and can be encouraged by them. Having a rich inner life, it has to come out. I have to share it with you. And if you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to contact me. Um, my next video will be on experiences more out into the world, where I've had a vision or something going on out in the world. So There will be a total of 9 categories, and I'll have several stories in each one, just like I did today. And if you want to contact me, you can reach me through my website at michellestaryoga.com. And if you're interested in joining in my Zoom live classes, just write me an email and I can send you the link. Or if you're interested in meditation, or if you want to have a class of your own with your friends, we can set that up. If you are interested in tarot or numerology consultation, just contact me. It's just so much fun to do. And if you're interested and willing and want to send me a little tip for my time and my work, then you can send it through PayPal. My email is michellestaryoga@gmail.com. So I can be reached through PayPal if you'd like to do that. It would help out. I'm not doing my home health care work right now anyway. The fellow that I was working with passed away, and I've been just catching up with this kind of work ever since. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here with me and letting me share my voice and my stories with you. I'm a Sagittarius, and Sagittariuses love to tell stories. So have a wonderful day or evening wherever you're at, and please come back and watch more stories, Mysti-Stories with Michelle Starr. Thanks so much. Namaste.